Looks like by the clock on the wall, I will go ahead and call to order this regular city council meeting of Monday, May 22nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon.
Present.
Pratt.
Here.
Jenkins.
Here.
Van Osper.
Here.
Rhines. Gilroy.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
I did receive a text message from Councilman Rhines that he was unable to be here for this evening, so I would entertain a motion to excuse his absence.
So moved.
Thank you, and do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm looking for an approval of this evening's agenda unless there are changes that need to be submitted.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you so much. Thank you for support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have an opportunity for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. If anybody's in the audience that would like to come forward at this time. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience at this time, so I will go ahead and move on. We have our council meeting minutes of May 8th, 2023. I'm looking for approval as submitted unless there are changes that need to be noted.
Move to accept the minutes as submitted.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you for the support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that motion carries. And now moving down the agenda into our accounts payable for this evening. Councilman Lanning, you had an opportunity to review.
I did, and I'll go through line by line.
Okay,
each one
that
of these
sounds
things.
good. We need 4 minutes.
No, they were all relatively straightforward. I think this is probably the shortest one we've had this year. There was one that's not a question, but I wanted to point out the good work of our City Hall, is that one of them was to replace a mailbox in town that was accidentally hit, allegedly, by a city truck, and so the city, went through and reimbursed the individual to get that replaced. So obviously appreciate the city taking that on and making sure we're taking care of our residents. So with that, like I said, there's nothing much else, citing some repairs,
Just a quick question here. What is a UB refund?
That's the refund for our utilities.
Utility bill refund.
Right,
Mhm.
correct,
That's
yeah.
correct.
So if there was like
Just
a
wondering what the
overpayment or,
acronym stood for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
so pretty straightforward stuff. So with that, I will make a motion for checks 76722 through 76751, EFT 431, ACH 426 through 432, for a grand total of $38,333.15.
Thank you so much, Councilman Lanning. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you both. Are there any questions regarding accounts payable this evening? And Terry, that was a great one for the acronym because not everybody understands those, so I appreciate that. With that being said, there's no discussion. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Van Osper.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Pratt.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
Excellent. We have half a minute. So just looking over our agenda here, we're going to move on to the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. There we go. So I will call the public meeting to order by the clock on the wall at 7:05. All right.
So this is our annual required public hearing for our city budget. Also, we're having a public hearing for potential water and wastewater rate increases. Those are all part of the same presentation. Hey Scott, do you want to pull the cap off that lens so we can film?
Thanks, Tom.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
You were here? Yes.
So we-
I took care of it by myself.
So again, we just have a
It's
very
raining,
brief presentation. Next slide, please. So our budgetary themes for the coming year, largely the same as far as operations services, no significant proposed changes. We're gonna continue to replace equipment as necessary. We do have several large, call them impactful water, sewer, and street projects coming up in the proposed fiscal year, North Putnam, Williams, and Lloyd Street. We'll be implementing the road diets, and then we do have the master plan update, and then also a website overhaul. All of in the last three items, which are new, those are accounted for in the fiscal year budget, as presented. Next slide. The proposed millage rate this time around is 14.8872 mils. That's for general operating. That's $14.89 rounding up for $1,000 in taxable value.
What is the current rate?
The current rate, Mr. Mead, is
The same.
exactly the same.
No increase.
So the same millage rate. We're actually at what's called a Headley limited community.
Okay.
So we have, excuse me, if we were doing a rollback, we'd present that. We're a Headley limited community, which means that if we wanted to go above this levy, we would have to vote on that. By vote, I mean have an election to exceed the Headley cap.
Okay.
So we can get into that offline if anybody needs that. Next slide, please. So this isn't the greatest read, but this is online, it is in everyone's packet. This shows the millage breakdown of where property taxes, for every dollar of property tax, the city collects about 26%, so it's a little over a quarter, a quarter. So the rest of the millages collected, the lion's share of the schools in the county, and there's all the additional subunits like the library, NISA, the airport, etc. So that shows you the breakdown for, and this is for residents, for those with a PRE, which is the primary resident exemption, and that's 18 mils, correct, Mr. Mead?
Correct.
And so if it's your primary residence, you're exempted from paying that, that's the school tax. Next slide. Businesses, the ratio is a little different because they are required to pay the 18 mils, so does change the number. The largest portion is the school tax. And the city operating equates about 20%, so 2 dimes out of the dollar are kept by the city. And sometimes that can be confusing because as the taxable entity for these jurisdictions, we take the funds in, but then we have to redistribute those right away, and those show up in our accounts payable when those are taken in. Next slide. So sewer fund, we've had many discussions over this, really going back to last year. We are assuming a rate increase of 5%. Without a rate increase, we'll have an ongoing structural deficit year to year. We do have planned improvements necessary in the immediate future, and we're still only assuming 2 new residential sewer connections. Next slide. So what that rate increase means, it equals about a $2.55 per month increase for the average household, assuming they use about 4,500 gallons per month. Water fund, not as quite as severe ongoing structural deficit, so we're just requesting a 1% rate increase this year, also conservative on the water connection side. Next slide. And what that would equate to is about 51 cents per month for the average household, assuming they use 4,500 gallons per month. So, bundling those together, you're looking at about a $3 a month increase on utility bills. And that's obviously significantly lower than the Baker-Tilly presentation. And we talked about, I guess, how we landed on these numbers during the work sessions and also during our budget work sessions, that it's not, the Baker-Tilly model over a 5-year period, year over year, had us at about a 50% increase over the next 5 years, and we know that's not sustainable. And that was just on the sewer side, and on the water side it was less, it was about 20-some%. So, for the record, that's not my phone, just letting you know.
It's off.
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine,
okay.
it's fine. I'm just letting everybody know it's not mine. So, it's significantly less, and part of that is, it's a calculated professional, and that's somewhat of It's not a gamble, but we're banking on additional growth in the system, some moderate growth in the system over that 5-year period. So that rate shock is spread amongst new users. Because absent any significant new connections over time, when we get to the point where we're gonna have to do a significant wastewater plant project, if there are no slow, modest rate increases over any time period, then you're looking at, the rate shock there's a number of communities around us right now that are considering that. I'd encourage you, I don't have the specific number, but the community of Mason is coming to grips with, they have a pretty significant wastewater project that they're about to undertake, and I think they're double-digit rate increases for the foreseeable future. So, and that will happen when your infrastructure ages out, and the good news is that the rates have been kept as low as they reasonably could, but we're getting to the point that's no longer sustainable. Yes?
Did you say double-digit increases for the foreseeable future, like not just one double-digit increase, but 10% this year, 10% the next year, 10% the year after?
In that other community.
In Mason,
Yeah.
That's a huge shock. If people had that here, there'd be voices.
That's correct.
Wow.
And that's what we're trying to avoid. Next slide. So the budget process really starts in January. It's actually before that, and we have our discussions internally. We did have our visioning session. We try and have it either in sometime in February or early March. So we had that. We did have a utility rate discussion on the 24th of April. We had our work sessions in May, and this is the public hearing. And we're all marching towards that finish line at the next council meeting where the budget's adopted. So and this is the process that will happen, each and every year that I'm here. And we can always modify it or tweak it a little bit. But what this really does, it allows for plenty of discussion with staff and with council. And I don't want to say there's trade-offs. There's some give and take as you march towards a budget process. But this is 1, 2, 3, 4. There's been at least four public opportunities for the public to follow along, read the minutes, watch the meetings online, marching towards this meeting, which is the 5th public meeting, formal public meeting dedicated to budgets and or rates throughout the month. And so this is the process, this is what we do, and with the idea that the budget and then any rate adjustments would be adopted at the June 12th meeting, and then the budget's adopted, and then the start of the new fiscal year would be July 1st. So, last slide. So that is questions and discussions. And so because we're in the public hearing, it's appropriate for the mayor, and I know we don't have many folks from the public here tonight. It's appropriate for the mayor to ask if there are any discussions from the public, and if there are, then we'll answer those questions, and that moves back to the city council.
Great, thank you. And so at this point, I will ask if there's any discussion from the public, which I know we don't have public here. However, I want to thank John and the city staff for their thoroughness during this process. It is a timely process. We put a lot of effort into it. The one question that I would ask John, and then we'll go out, but have you had any calls from the public at all? Like you just said, you explained it very well. This is available to the public through our YouTube, through our public notices. Have we had any calls or concerns or letters from the public regarding our budget? Yes.
I would say I have not received any specific to what's in front of the council tonight. I've had some discussions with different boards and committee members because you see them more often, and they just ask about the budget process.
Right.
Mainly, it's more project related.
Right.
That's probably, and there was a question that came up at our DDA meeting last week in regards to the Putnam project. Because that's also the theme too, and I think I said that in my management report, it's incumbent upon all of us. We always want to, we always take the calls, we'll take the emails, we'll respond to them, but when we're in a group of folks that we see all the time, to have those discussions so then our, the knowledge base of what's going on extends by, 7 council members, 7 more DDA members, 8 or 9 planning commissioners, and so on and so forth. So, and the question was really about, how the city was going to pay for it, and we talked about we're splitting the project in parts and accommodating that way, and we talked about somewhat of the failing of the state bid process. It sort of failed us this time around.
Correct.
But as far as like specific rates or millages, I've not received any. I don't know if any of the other staff have, but
Well, and one thing to point out for our viewing community is that each of our boards that are under council have their own working budgets. Those budgets then come up, that's what helps us form our general fund budget. We take all of those budgets, it's folded in. Again, our staff works very hard to do that. And so there's really no stone left unturned when we go through our budget process. So just to make that clear that all of those boards have their own budgets that roll up into this overall budget that we're getting ready to approve on June 12th. All right, so I will go ahead and take us out of our, oh yes, go ahead.
My
Go
question
ahead,
was,
Tom.
when we
Thank
looked
you.
at the pie charts for the PRE and non-PRE
Mhm.
tax millage breakdowns, I'm just curious, those are 2022 charts, are those the same projected for the upcoming year, 2 percentage-wise? How it's
I mean,
distributed?
correct, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know of any, and Mr. Mead, I don't think any of the other entities are going for millage enhancements or increases in the coming
I
year.
have not heard of any, and just for the record, we have not received the 2023 millage rates yet from any of the other taxing units, but I've not heard of any.
Right.
Thank you.
So we don't expect, it. Again, we would know that by now, like if NISA was going for an enhancement millage, I mean, I'm sure you would have reported that as a.
Right, I'll go to Councilman Jenks and then I'll go to Councilman Van Osberg.
On the 4,500 per gallon average for household, how is that calculated?
That's just, there's a average of 280 gallons per day typically for a person.
I think, John, what they did is they looked at what the typical house and kind of calculated that out.
Yeah.
We don't actually bill 4.5, it's either 4 or
Right.
5, but on the average, most people pay either 4 or 5 thousand.
Does that answer your question?
Do we recalculate that periodically, or has that been our standard for?
It's based on actual usage in the system, what the normal customer, average customer uses. Obviously, there are some people that use more,
Right.
and there are some people that use only 1,000 gallons more.
Sure.
A lot of it depends on how many of your adult children move back into your house.
Right, right, exactly. Councilman Van Osberg?
Yeah, the situation in Mason, you may not have an opinion or an answer, but I'm curious if that was something that they could see coming and just elected to not raise rates, or if they were taken by surprise.
I don't know that, but I can tell you, I know to tell from my own experience, when I started in my last community in 2007, you know, I inherited a project, a $12 million project that no one had really done the calculations on how they're gonna pay for it. It's probably one of the reasons I got the job, but that's a story for another time. But we were faced with, in a very short time, the net increase was 72% from the current rates. Now, the rates there were very, very, very low for a number of years. There was a reluctance to do any rate increase, and it's difficult. It's one of the most difficult things that we ask all of you to do as council folks, is to raise the price of what we do here. But I can tell you in that case, it was just the council and, you know, the administration at the time, they knew an issue was coming, but they just kept kicking the can down the road, and then the time came where there was a lawsuit and a plant had to be built, and or any kind of development, or any, like, even one more house could have been built after that point. So we're trying to avoid that, and our situation is nowhere near as dire. We have plant improvements we have to make, but again, if you are a Lansing State Journal subscriber, I'm sure it's online. I'm sure Mason has it online. But that was just and I wasn't aware that it's actually Ann Casper in our office, who's not a Mason resident, but she just pointed that out, that they were going through those challenges.
Yeah, so that's the Baker Tilly study showing 50% in 5 years, and we're doing 5%. So that has to trigger in a councilman's mind, like, I mean, we've discussed it, but it still has to raise a concern. But we're gonna end up having the same thing.
Yeah, I think that I could see how you could land on that, but again, it's partly incumbent upon us as staff to use our experience. We've got an experienced group here. to try and, over that 5-year period, to mitigate that kind of rate shock.
Okay.
And I'm confident we can do that, but what I am confident of, if we don't start some sort of modest increase now, then next year it'll be 10% or 9.5%, and water will be 2%, and it'll just compound over time. It's like not paying your credit card balance, if you will.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the questions. One final thought on that is that we have not seen rate increases in 5, almost 6 years. And we were very calculated as to why we did not want to do that. When we did have rate increases, it was 3% across the board. So that was about 1.5% for water, 1.5% for sewer. I mean, we all know that we need to be fiscally responsible, and when we have such a great staff that can go out and look for grant-funded projects or look for ways to save money in other areas, that helps our overall budget. It helps us be able to save for that rainy day, just as I'm sure we all do with our own personal finances. You've got to have that money set aside for when you have to make those tough decisions. And so I think that, moving forward, this is the best scenario, that we do have to, just kind of look at all the information that's presented to us when we come back on June 12th and we get ready to approve that budget. And so with that, that'll be my last comment, and I will go ahead and take us out of,
Question?
yes, I'm
Scott,
sorry,
Just real quick.
yes.
What do you think is the big deal right now is the sewer system, the sewage treatment plant, right? We're gonna save, I think, we're gonna save something significant amount of money with finding these places where stormwater is getting into the sewer system and it's overflowing. And what's your sort of seat of the pants sense? What percentage of the sewer that we're getting right now are we gonna save, so to speak, by blocking these places where stormwater gets in?
Well, we've actually been working towards that endeavor now for several years. We've made some significant progress with the flooding events that happened this past spring with the river. We did not have the peak flow at the wastewater treatment plant that we actually had to turn the process off like we've had to do in the past, which puts us very close to a violation during that high flow event. So you're right in keying in on the fact that we've been looking for those things, and actually by doing some of this work, we've kept this kind of things at bay a little bit. And we're gonna continue to try and find more and more of that, because what it does is it eats up whatever capacity we have that's beyond our normal usage in the process. Am I explaining this enough? Okay.
Do you have a seat of the pants number? Can we save 10%?
I can't really give you a seat of the
I
pants
wouldn't hold
number
you
for
for
something like that. But we're talking about, potentially millions of dollars worth of enhancements at the wastewater treatment plant. And anything we can do, if we can invest $10,000 and it maybe extends the time period before we'd have to spend $1 million or something like that, that's well invested money.
Yeah, I imagine it's a certain number of dollars of treatment that have to go into every 1,000 gallons of sewage that is.
Yeah, and it does have that effect. When we can eliminate some of that from flowing through the plant, that does lower the per gallon cost of treatment.
Yeah.
So every time we find those, we are keeping the overall cost to our customers down.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you. I'm going to take us out of this public hearing at 7:25 and go back into our regular agenda. And we're going to move on to our action items. The first on here is the reappointment of Narda Murphy to the Downtown Development Authority for a term to expire 6/30/2027. I'm looking for that motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes?
Van Osberg.
Yes.
All right, moving on to our next action item, we have a reappointment of Earl Wolf to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term to expire 6/30/2026. Can I have that motion, please?
Make that motion.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes. Now we have our Metro Act application. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, John Harrington.
Sorry, I was doing some quick math for wastewater calculating. So these are, we see these when utilities, typically telecommunication utilities, seek to operate in our right of way. And it's a Metro Act application, because there was an act created that creates the parameters and the rules and what the requirements are for telecommunication companies or others that wish to work in the right of way in that regard. So this was shared with Mr. Perone's office. I don't know if he has any questions. I believe it says in the packet that it's in order. So that's kind of it. There's been a lot of activity in town, which long-term is a good thing, because it means that the network is being enhanced in this area, and that should bear out in the Xfinity Comcast case of additional competition, which is always a good thing for cable TV. And then there's the other Frontiers, the other community that's bringing fiber this way. So I don't have any other questions other than, I know it can be frustrating for folks, but in this case, I mean, there's nothing to do other than to adopt the application.
All right, so if there's no questions regarding what
One
are you saying?
question.
Yes, Tom.
Just real quick, is this for new telecommunication lines, or is this a permit to continue with the right of way of existing? I guess I was confused reading through it.
This is a new company, it's my understanding.
123 Net is the company, is this is just an internet cable
Correct.
company?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would be in addition to the two current new
Correct.
providers that are coming through and putting in.
That's right.
Scott?
Just a little extra information here.
Yes, thank you.
They're not some of the companies like Comcast and WOW and Frontier, they're, blanketing the entire town. This particular application only shows on their mapping that they're running east and west through town,
Okay.
so more of a backbone type thing.
Gotcha.
We have other companies that do that as well. There's like 2 other companies, and so it adds another important backbone of fiber through this region.
Great.
So it's just, it's part of the overall network.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that extra information. With that being said, I'm looking for the motion to approve this 123 Net Metro Act permit application.
So moved.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. If there's no other questions or discussion, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Hanson,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes?
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
All right. Our next is the Volunteers Park West Fence and Gate Proposal. And I'm turning this over to Scott.
Yes, thank you.
Scott.
So you might have noticed that there's another flurry of activity over at Volunteers Park today.
Yes.
So that's part of some of this other work that we've had going on. We have a very active and great group in town called Friends of Williamston Parks. They've formed over the last, 5 or 6 years here, and actually before that, and have done great enhancements to other parks in town. They decided to shift their attention to Volunteers Park. Well, there's some more history here because Volunteers Park was broken off from the community center property as that became the Commons. And part of that agreement, when we broke the property off, is that the city would eventually put a fence along the western boundary of the park, separating it from the Commons property. That was put a pin in for a while because it was very strongly being looked at with the Commons, with some site plan work and some parking over there and some shared use of the lands and so forth. And at this point, they're not moving forward with that work. And there's no real plan in the near future to do that. So we're moving forward with the obligation to complete that side, kind of backing up the other work that's going on in the park and trying to wrap up the majority of the enhancements there. Everybody's getting pretty excited about this. The Cleary fence I believe they were the ones that did the original fencing, the wrought iron fencing that you see in there. It's actually mostly made out of aluminum. And they are also doing the relocation along the new entry at the corner of South Putnam and School Street right now. So they'll be back doing that, and they gave us an additional quote to add this other fencing. There's some time lag because you have to get it and so forth. It won't be an exact match because there's some circles that are in the top part of the fencing that's there right now that is difficult to get. It'd be like a special order type of thing. But they found a pretty close match with the same sort of square tubing and spacing on most of the bars. And we think it saves a significant amount of money. So we think it's the best way to go at this point. For most people, they're not gonna notice the difference, especially along that one side over there. So I guess if, I did include in your packet a little diagram of the park. Yours may or may not be in color, I'm not sure. So we've got the fence along this border over here. There would be a gate, and the city does have an access easement on the adjoining property that was written in when the sale happened. And that gate would be for our equipment to get in and out and service the park on a, not a daily basis, but on, infrequent basis.
Right.
Any questions?
So I'm sorry, Scott, so the main entrance for pedestrians or anybody visiting the park then is going to be along School Street and Putnam. That gate is for maintenance vehicles only.
That gate would be for that. There is a gap that would be provided right by the corner of
Okay.
the basketball court, about 4 or 5 foot wide, just a pedestrian opening
Okay.
for people to get into the basketball court instead of having to walk all the way down the
Right.
sidewalk to the main entrance.
Right, Scott?
Yeah, was the municipal lot that was suggested, was that, what was the basis of the decision for not moving forward with that?
It ended up being, they were gonna put a coffee shop in and some other stuff over there. What they found though is as they started getting into the site plan work, that there had to be a lot of money put into it for stormwater management program and then the cost of the parking lot. And it just got to be, I think, too big of a project. So
Okay, so this was the owners of the commons that
it was
were-
the owners of the commons that decided to not move
Okay,
forward.
got it, okay, thanks,
And that this has been this way for many years now, so.
okay.
Any other questions for Scott before I ask for the motion? Yes,
Quick
Terry?
question. I'm on Parks and Rec, so I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. Are these the only basketball courts in a park, in the city park in Williamston? Is that true?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, McCormick has pickleball, tennis, and volleyball. And I believe there's still a backstop for, recreational softball, but yes, this is the only 2 basketball courts in town.
Are there outside
It does.
basketball courts at the schools somehow?
Yes, there is, at the schools, they do have them. Mhm.
But they're not.
These guys, these guys are occupied all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
When the temperature goes up, it's just like, dang, it's full of kids.
Yeah.
You win state titles, man.
Yeah, that's right, practice, practice. With that being said, I'm looking for the motion for Volunteers Park, West Fence, and Gate proposal.
Make a motion to approve Clary Fence for the West Gate Volunteer Park. West Fence Volunteer Park.
Can you read the actual requested action on the memo?
Okay.
Thank you.
Make a motion to finish and install 35 sections of 3-rail black
No,
commercial
No,
grade.
no. Go up above, right
Request,
there.
I move to authorize the installation of decorative fencing and a maintenance gate for Volunteers Park in accordance with proposal from Clary Fence of Dansville, Michigan, in the amount of $15,100.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Scott. If there's no other questions or discussion, Holly, will you call the roll?
Pratt,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
All right, our last action item is the Trent Allen Memorial Basketball Courts crack repair and resurfacing proposal. I'm going back to Scott for the memo that's in our packet.
Yeah, so this kind of goes along with the thing that we just talked about. And we have found that it's a 4 to 5 year time period that a surface will last before the cracking and so forth gets bad enough that it starts really impacting play or safety for the participants. And the age of the court is getting such that we actually also investigated possibly doing some resurfacing, but that cost was like $37,000 and it was a 2-inch overlay. And the cracks would reflect back through again. So what we think is the best course right now is to approve a new surface with crack repair and a small amount. There's one area that there's some ponding going on that we want to fix. And then go through one more cycle, and we would look at a more serious rejuvenation of the surface possibly the next time around. We think we can buy one more cycle out of it.
And this is about a 4 to 5 year cycle according to the memo.
Correct.
All right, so we're looking at closer to about 2020, 28, 29-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Questions, Terry?
How much is it gonna cost in 2029?
I don't know if you can foresee in the
What's the
future.
projected, we have this as liability, how big is our liability in 2029? What's our plan?
Well, I think
Yeah.
we're gonna be seriously looking at probably milling that section out. That's there right now, the asphalt section, and then having a brand new asphalt put in, not just overlaying on top at that point. So we're you know, in today's dollars, I don't know, 50,000 ballpark.
What was it again?
50,000 or so
50,000.
ballpark.
So this is 5 times your annual, or every 4 years kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit more than that because of the milling and taking the material out. I haven't
I'm
investigated.
not gonna hold you to it, I was just kind of wondering, is this a $250,000 job, or is this a $50,000 job? It's 50.
Okay, it's 50 to 100, let's say that.
Okay, that's
50 to 100.
I'm just looking for a
Yes.
ballpark.
But I think that's something to be very aware of, but this is a Parks and Rec budget, so over the next several years, budget cycles, that's something that that board will want to make sure that they factor in when they're doing their budget work. But I'm sure that, you know, as we move towards that, and Friends of the Williamston Parks and any other sponsors that would want to contribute to the maintenance or maintaining of that basketball court, I'm sure the city would be happy to entertain a conversation with that. If there are no questions or discussion, I'm looking for the requested action, please.
I'll make a motion for the authorization of the crack sealing resurfacing proposal with McCreary Asphalt and Sealing Incorporated, Lansing, Michigan, in the amount of $10,995.
Thank you so much, Tom. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Pratt.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening. Moving on to our discussion items, we have our road diet. I will go ahead and, who wants to update on this?
Take the first crack at it.
All right,
So,
thanks.
we did present the plan at the last CDA meeting, and I reported on that, my manager report, and there's like, I think 7 different great bullet points, discussion points that came up. So those are good. That will really help us frame on how to answer those things at the June 21st meeting. And we're gonna have the open house format, much like we did with the North Putnam project, so folks can kind of come and go throughout the time period, rather than having the reveal at 6 p.m. and some people had to miss it because they had, t-ball or soccer that night. So, so that's really I guess the largest update. I have gotten a couple calls and emails about this. So far, so good, overwhelmingly positive. We haven't heard from everybody, as you know, but so I'm sure we'll hear more from folks. But Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we're looking forward to the 21st, and as I said at the various meetings, as I make my way through the next month or so, I will bring this up and at least have a little bit of time at each of those meetings to present to folks what's going on.
Okay, all right. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work, and I just want to say thank you again to that, presenting to all the different boards, making sure that, we're prepared for that open house on June 21st. We will definitely make sure that this is publicized through our city website as well as our social media pages, so that we can make sure that we can make sure our reach is as far as possible on that before that particular project gets underway. Our next discussion item is construction project updates, and this is more specific to our Putnam, our William Street, and our Lloyd Street. So, are you gonna take that, John, or Scott?
I'll let
Flip a quarter?
No, I'll just, our tax rate. So Scott did a great job of putting together the initial media post that we did share on Facebook and our city webpage about the adjustment to the North Putnam project. So that's the most eminent schedule to talk about. So I'll let Scott talk a little bit about that, and then how the other projects, Williams and Lloyd, sort of fit into the schedule as of today.
Yeah, as John noted, that got pushed out. Actually, want to give Barb credit. She assisted with the wording on that, so thank you, Barb. And we do have this week is a pre-bid meeting with our invited and whoever else, John from Spicer is here too. But we have that coming up as a virtual meeting on Wednesday, I believe. And so we're gonna field any questions that come from the contractors. If we have anything that is revealed in that makes sense for us to make some modifications to the contract that's out for bid, we will incorporate that and get that rolled out. I believe the bid is the
June 20th.
7th. What's that?
sorry, the 6th.
Yeah, 6th, okay.
June 6th.
The 6th of June. So, we're anxious and awaiting that time period, so.
So my question would be, for this bid, for this pre-bid meeting, is this only covering Putnam? Or
No.
is it covering
No,
Putnam,
it's the
Williams,
entire
Lloyd?
project.
The entire
Yeah,
project?
it's the Putnam portion, it's the Williams portion, and the Lloyd portion. They're all in
Fantastic.
one package.
Okay, great,
There are different dates and timelines,
Yes.
like we went over in the presentation.
okay, fantastic. I think the one thing that our community probably is getting restless about, is start date, end date, and I know that you had that great slide presentation, when we went through it, but as soon as we are able to put parentheses around it with start and end, even if it's within a 2-week window of the start, 2-week window of the end, we know that there's gonna be construction delays, inclement weather, product delay, or something like that. We know that that's gonna happen throughout this cycle. But I think for those particular neighborhood areas, there's a lot of, like what John and I talked about, the rumor mills. And the rumor mills are very ginned up. I've heard from my neighbors through different, conversations, it's happening, it's not happening. And it's difficult for me because I can't give them exact information. I'm sure probably Brandon on North Putnam, you're experiencing it. Terry, in your area, you're probably experiencing it. So, I would just hope that, we're able to continue to put out more good information like what Barb and the city staff worked on with that particular notice. It would be helpful.
Just want to say that until we get the contractor on board, we can't
I know.
get the information about
I know.
what the real schedule is, when they're gonna start.
Right. And so I would just want to make sure that we caution, all of our city staff, council members, board members, anybody, that please refer community members, residents, businesses, whoever could be directly involved, to call city directly. That's the best answer that they are going to get, because the stories just continue to evolve to the point where you hear some really ridiculous things, like John mentioned that, somebody was very concerned that the bridge on Putnam was just going to be closed for 18 months, and that's just not true.
It's just not true.
It's just not true. So that's how these things evolve, and the quicker we can, put an end to those types of stories, that's great.
This does bring up a good point, and that is that if you're reading the Williamston Community Update page, as a city councilman, and you see something go by that is this or that, or you think you should answer, or you don't know if you should answer, do you have an opinion on whether we should?
I think we should always refer to our city staff. Our
Okay.
city staff is our front line. They are the experts in this. They're the ones that bring us the information. So I know that we're getting accurate information from, our city staff, but I don't even go out and answer unless it's information that I've had directly from a city meeting. I know that we've got a YouTube
Yeah, I've
backup
seen you
of it, or,
respond a little
so-
bit, but not a huge
so-
amount.
yeah, so I would always direct anybody that has questions to our city, because
Okay.
that's gonna be the best source of information. Terry?
I think I remember a pipe going under the Red Cedar. Was one of the first things to be done with the stuff?
That's in a later project that's not out right now. That will be, like, we believe in the 2024 projects. But
And
we had to
that's
go,
that
we had to
Cedar
go through the
Cedar
environmental
Street,
process, which is why you remember it,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to go through the environmental process now for all of the projects.
Okay, got it.
So, and we have been fielding some of these calls, some people have actually called
Yes.
in.
I'm
And
sure they have.
so far, the experience has been that as we talk with them and we kind of explain the real truth of what we know, they
calm down?
I shouldn't say calm down, but they're more understanding, and they go, oh, well, that's not as bad as I thought.
Right.
You know?
And that's the thing I think that I want to relay right now, is that no construction project is easy. It does not come without some type of pain points, but what we can try to do is we can try to mitigate those pain points for our residents as best as possible. We have not had big construction projects like this, especially 3 concurrently. I can't remember when. I mean, we've had the church and Putnam intersection. We've had the Spalding where we've had, water main. We've had South Putnam, but we've not had the amount of activity that we're gonna have in our city in probably a very, very long time. So I think you guys are doing a tremendous job. I think you're doing a very good job. But that would just be my suggestion, is that as we're out in the community, if neighbors or residents stop us, that we just direct them to City Hall, city staff. That's where they're going to get their best answer.
Do we have a not earlier than construction start date?
Well, from a realistic standpoint, we received bids on the 6th. We're gonna take it to you hopefully on the 12th, I believe. And then it takes a few weeks to do the contracts.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be after Jubilee, it's probably gonna be after 4th of July, is the earliest anybody would want to start anyways, if that's what they want. And the thing that we have to be careful with, if we box the contractor into such tight a schedule, you really, really pay for that.
Yeah.
So we had to provide adequate space that it didn't really mess up the town too much, but we gave the contractor the ability to start in July or August or September, but they still gotta be done by a certain time. And we just don't want them to tear it up and leave it torn up the whole time.
Correct.
It's get started, get in, get done within this time frame, but that time frame can shift in a window.
Yep.
Does that help everybody?
Yes.
And we just don't know what that window is yet until we get the contractor on board, and then they can present, here's our schedule.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about it, and then we'll get it out to everybody as soon as we know.
And I think, to be fair, Scott, I think the one real big stumbling block that we had was that initial bid process where the bid came in high, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So, for our viewing community, it's not that we are trying to drag this out by any means possible. We've faced our own challenges and difficulties in this process. And so I would just, request that our residents and our community give us space and grace so that we can do this correctly and properly, and it will be such huge improvements for those areas affected. Anything else you, John, or Scott would like to add, or Spicer even, since you're always here and we thank you so much for that.
I'll say thank you.
All right. With that being said, we'll keep moving along our agenda. Correspondence received, information only. We do not have any, so I'll move along to our department head reports. John, we have your memo in here, but I'll go ahead and give you an opportunity to add to it.
Yeah, I guess really the only thing we haven't touched on is just a report on our parks cleanout. And I wasn't there the whole time, I was there for about an hour. It was great, McCormick was hopping, there was, I think, 3 birthday parties going on. We had the NHS help, I know a couple of you came out to help, and I know it was appreciated. I somehow got stuck moving a ladder, I'm just glad I didn't have to go up on it, so. But it was, I thought it was a great day, the weather cooperated for the most part. And Earl Wolf and Heather Galechka are just, like, for parks, man, they're just such great volunteers, and they really make a lot of things happen in town, but in particular, that parks cleanup day is pretty cool. So, other than that, we've touched a lot of this other stuff.
Great. All right. Any questions for John regarding his manager report? All right. Chief, I see you sitting over there.
I am
And
here.
you promised you were going to have an
I
update
did, I
this
thought
time.
about that right about 2 minutes ago. So,
Sure.
my biggest challenge still is staffing, and we'll talk about that more later in the agenda. But other than that, it's good, life is good.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. Just quick, Chief, how many full-time do you have currently on staff, and do we have any part-time on staff?
We have 4 full-time officers. We
Okay.
don't have any part-time yet. I have one that's interested.
Okay.
I'm looking for school resource officers, I'm looking for part-time, I'm looking for full-time. We have 2 full-time openings.
Right.
And so it's a variety of options for people, and I got some things we're working on, but I'll go 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Sure.
And
And for anybody out there in our viewing community that could possibly be qualified, MCOL's qualified, where would they be able to find the information to submit an application?
it's on our website, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody at any time. And so we are finding some people in midlife that are looking to change careers, because that's an opportunity now with all the options out there. And so I got somebody I'm talking about that tomorrow, I've got 2 people I've been talking to, but it's a different world, we'll talk more later about this.
Sure.
I never had to do this, to send our insurance policies out to them, their salaries out to them, and they are looking at all that. It's a different world to hire police officers today. And so we're not alone, everybody's in, I don't know any police department that is fully staffed, but it has a bigger effect on the smaller departments, because the bigger departments are taking our people. And so,
Well, we appreciate your efforts and your diligence to get more staffing. So anything that we can do or any assistance we can provide, please don't hesitate to ask.
thank you.
And Tom, I see you over there. Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think, appreciate the opportunity, but I think we've kind of covered what we're working on primarily, the budget, so getting ready for summer property tax bills next month, so,
Okay.
but yeah, mainly right now, we're focused on budget.
Okay.
Get that approved and behind us, and then we'll be moving on to new things and a new year coming up pretty
Great.
quick.
All right, well, we look forward to being able to help you along with that at our next council meeting. Scott, you provided a lot of information. Anything else regarding, DPW or?
Just have tons of stuff going on,
Yeah, you
so
do.
they're getting into the heat of the summertime things. And
Yeah, all right, well, we
keeping
appreciate,
up with construction, keeping up with all of the Comcast and then Frontier.
yeah,
The magnitude of misdigs that are coming into us are unreal.
Yeah.
We're getting one misdig that will cover an entire neighborhood of 60 houses.
wow,
And
Wow.
normally that would be 60 different misdig tickets that the guys would have to do. And we normally don't do that kind of workload. So it's really taxing things sometimes.
and are you fully staffed right now?
We are full-time staffed, yes, and we have our summer people. We
Seasonal.
have one summer guy that's starting up on the 12th, so
Excellent,
we're looking forward to that.
great, wonderful. Well, again, and as I just said to Tom, if there's anything that we can do to help, ease your pain or your workload or whatever, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, moving along, we have our subcommittee reports. Who here has been to meetings that they would like to share? Tom, and then I'll move on to, or I'm sorry, Scott, and then I'll move on to Steve.
So I went to the cemetery meeting, and
Okay.
the excitement there was that people who are maintaining Zoltan Ferentz's grave planted a pine tree.
Oh.
And the people who have the plot next to theirs, their parents are buried there, they don't like the trees.
Oh, no.
Yeah, our next meeting, we have a.
Tree controversy.
We have a meeting
Tree gate.
to go out, yeah, well, the whole issue of the aesthetics of the cemetery has now come up in terms of, because what's happening is that people are supposed to get permission to do stuff on those things, and they don't. They just go and do it. And so that whole issue is gonna be, so we're meeting at the cemetery and we're gonna hash that out.
All right, well, we look forward to an update on that then. Thank you so much. Yes, Steve?
At a Tifa and a ERC meeting, at the Tifa meeting, we approved the repair of the salt barn door, which has apparently been an ongoing issue for 11, 12, 13 years. Most of the discussions surrounded the waiver that we had to sign, that the company doing the repair that did the initial, they are saying, we've been in this for a long time, we'll give you another $20,000 for the repair, but we want to be done with it, so we needed to sign a waiver to say that that would be okay. Scott provided great information to help us neophytes to understand what it was that was the problem. So we approved that. And then the ERC, we approved budgets for both TIFA and ERC, and then for the ERC, we elected officers,
Okay,
same officers.
sure.
There are some funds available in both TIFA and ERC, and John and staff are going to put together some suggestions, thoughts, and ideas and bring them back so we can discuss that when they bring the information to us.
Great, thank you. All right, who's next? Anybody else have any meetings that they've attended? All right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and look for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation again. I do not see anybody has joined us in our audience, so I will move on to our council member comments. I'll start at this end with Scott. I'm sorry. Yeah, Scott, yeah.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
doing councilman comments?
Yeah, councilman
I have
comments,
no
yeah.
comment.
You have no comments,
No.
Brandon.
Nothing.
All right, Steve.
Just on the water and sewer rate, I know there was a question asked whether or not John has received any information from those relative to that issue. I can tell you that anytime someone finds out that I'm on the council, they ask me what we're gonna do about the high and excessive water and sewer rates. So we need to continue to have the conversation and education with the public so that they understand, as John has pointed out, the infrastructure issues that we're trying to stay ahead of when it comes to why there may be a rate increase for water and sewer.
Well, plus we're not high, we're in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can get that information out. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, because that's what interested me, was the guy that did the rate study this time, he answered, the guy from before, the famous one, what's his name?
Tracy.
Tom Tracy, yeah.
He wouldn't answer the question.
Right.
This guy answered the question, where we fall,
Sure.
and we're in the average.
Yeah.
We're in average.
Yeah, he said that, but I would like to see documentation for
Sure.
each community around us. so
And
we
that
can
is
do a
available.
comparison.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that is available. Terry?
Yeah, trolls do not exist, okay? Pay no attention to the rumors. Please do not spread the rumor that there's a troll gonna be on the Putnam Bridge. Okay,
Yeah,
That's my
all right.
only.
All right, well, thanks for that. Tom?
Nothing from me.
All right. So one thing I think is interesting is that we have such a great community that comes together. So we have volunteers, we have service organizations. Summer is always the busiest time of year in our community. We've got band shell music in the park on Thursday evenings. It's a free concert. That information is available. We have our wonderful farmers market every Sunday down on the corner of High Street and Putnam. This past Sunday, they had over 30 vendors. So if you've not ever been to the farmers market, you definitely should go. We have our Jubilee coming up in less than a month. Those committees are working nonstop to make sure that our Red Cedar Jubilee is an amazing week of activities. I wish Dan were here to give us an update, but I'm going to pin him down on June 12th just to make sure that we all have that information. So I would just say get out, enjoy our community. If you've not been to our newest restaurant that's open, which is Nico's for Greek food, you're missing out. All of our restaurants are amazing, but because this one's new, I'm going to go ahead and say get in there because you will not be disappointed. And I also went and had ice cream at Twister's, and that is as good as ever. So, there's a lot of activity going on, and we'll try to keep you as informed as we can when we get the information. But again, please do not hesitate to contact our city offices if you do have a question. With that, I will go ahead and say good evening and adjourn at 7:50. No. Oh, sorry. I'm going to call for a motion to go into closed session at 7:54.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you very much. Holly, will you call session, please?
Who seconded?
Oh, he did, Scott did. He first did, he seconded.
And the purpose.
And the
Make
purpose.
a motion to move into closed session for capital city labor program, collective bargaining, allowed under MCL 15-268C.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Holly, will you call the roll?
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Pratt.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call us back into order at 8:23. And I am looking for a motion to go ahead and take us out of open session.
To adjourn.
Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna call to adjourn, sorry. It's been a long day.
You've got the gavel.
I do, close to adjourn.